Anyway. Oh, I hate this. Hate it, hate it. Okay, so we were continuing with the Sacred Heart. And we finished up with letter P, pray for the souls in purgatory. This is on the first Friday of each month. Pray for the souls in purgatory who were devoted to the Sacred Heart. Offer your communion for them and get a mass offered for them. All right. And I left a bookmark where we left off. I look forward to giving anybody who watches these videos on the Sacred Heart the outline that I'm going to make of this book that's going to be in short form. So that this way, anybody who reads my notes can, I'm going to give you a consolidated version of this book in note form. And these are the notes that I have taken thus far. It's quite a bit. You see all of this? But I'm going to make it into bullets so that you can practice this devotion and do exactly what Father John Croiset says to do. Okay, so I will be ready by the Feast of the Sacred Heart to do this, which is in less than 90, oh my goodness, which is in less than 90 days. So we're about 60% through the book. When we get closer to the end, I will then make it into bullet form, and then I will put that. I don't have a website for this, so if you want it, you give me your email, and I will email you the file. I'm going to make it into a Word document. So, that's beautiful. Okay. I just spent, I don't know, a little more than an hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And I tell you honestly, there's no other place to be. To some people it sounds like religious fanaticism, but you know what? The world is evil. It's evil. Families are being ripped apart. Families are ripped apart. Divorce is crippling the very fabric of our country. Children will always be children. But today you have 25-year-old men and women who act like they're going on 14. And it's because mommy and daddy have been split up. And mommy's been running the home because the daddy got kicked out under a pretext. Or maybe he was no good anyway. But it's an evil world. This is what I've seen in my own life. I always wanted to write a book about my life, but I'm afraid to. I don't think it would be good, but you have to see what some of us have suffered for the faith, you know? And I hate to even say that because I don't want anybody looking at me thinking that I'm that looking at me as if I think I'm such a great soul. That's not the point. The point is, you wouldn't believe what some of us have had to go through in order to be Catholic. One of my friends had what appears to be like a nervous breakdown. When I say nervous breakdown, I mean a literal breakdown of his central nervous system and its ability to deal with stress because of what happened to him. Perfectly normal guy. It's a stress disorder. You know, like post-traumatic stress disorder. I used to think that was all baloney. I actually believe it. Um, but it's just too personal. But the Sacred Heart devotion is everything. It's really, it's where we all should be. So, I wonder if it would be okay if I reveal some things. I can tell you this, the family courts in America are where the communism is literally alive and well. The unseating of the father from the home, legitimate parental authority, is the goal of these courts. And you can see when you deal with people who are like 40 and younger, they can't concentrate. They are super sensitive to any criticism. And when you find out that they're from broken homes, you realize that they have no respect for authority because they don't know authority. They don't know anything about authority. Everybody's equal. Think about this. When a woman goes in, most women are the ones who instigate a divorce in a court action. It's a known fact that women file for divorce more than men. And so eventually the father is put out of the house under some grounds, although many of those grounds are pretexts. And I know. I was one of them. And once that happens, the children can act however they want. And so, and then of course the mother has to buy the child's affection, and then the father becomes a visitor. Which, if you're a father out there, if you have any desire to save your children, do not allow a judge to reduce you to visitor. Once you do, the child will quickly catch on, no matter how old the child is, that you do not have the authority anymore to determine how long you are going to see your child. And once that happens, the child actually gets placed above the father. Because if the little girl should say to her daddy, "I have to go, daddy," think about what the kid is saying. "Daddy, you have to stop. I have to go. And you can't see me now. See you next Wednesday." So, the reason I mention that is because this is where we're at now. This is where the world is. And I saw it firsthand in my own life. And it was a wake-up call. I just, I would love to talk about it, but I'm over it. Let's just put it that way. It's 2008. From 2008 to 2015. Actually, about 2013. I'd say 13. The worst years of my life. And for what? Because I was Catholic. And so, my hope is that the Sacred Heart will be my refuge for all of my needs and desires. I can tell you one thing. When it's God's time to deliver you, you're delivered. There's one thing I asked him for, and I received an answer within a month and a half after having moved to Florida. And it was out of nowhere. It was clearly the hand of God that did it. But I don't want to beat around the bush. I just can't get into details. It's just... So... But ever since, something turned me on to the Sacred Heart years ago. And I've been pursuing it ever since. And it's really a lifelong journey. You can't nail down this devotion to the Sacred Heart in a month or two after reading this book. It's literally a change of lifestyle. It's a change of habits. It's abandoning habits. It's acquiring new habits. It's practicing one or two virtues at a time until they become habitual. It's visits to the Blessed Sacrament. It's holy hours at home. It's a lot, and it becomes a great thing. And the promises attached to it are manifold. It's not just 12 promises. So the practice of this devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus for each week. The Friday of each week is also a day on which we should pay special honor to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So here I go. I'm going to make a note of this, and I'm going to... Okay, I'm going to make this Roman numeral 2. Every Friday. So here's what I did anyway. I went in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and I came to the realization that I'm going to step up my prayers, and I'm going to visit the church early in the morning every day. Because if you want great things, you got to step it up. And I'm going to get to bed early. I'm going to get up early. And the day is going to start with 150 Hail Marys. And tomorrow I can't go to the Mass because I'm obligated to go right to work. I just wish they had an earlier Mass. I would literally, if they had a 5 in the morning Mass, I'd be there. Because the Mass is the ultimate prayer, And so I realized I'm going to step it up. Obviously, for those of you watching this, what is he doing? I'm begging. That's what I'm doing. And I realized, I got to be there every morning. And that's where the Sacred Heart is. That's where he's physically present. You make the effort to go and see him, and you beg. And you know what? When you get down and teary-eyed, he's perfecting your virtue. He's perfecting the virtue of your prayers. Don't despair. You don't snap your fingers and God answers your prayer. You keep coming back, chipping away at a Sacred Heart, begging, pleading. And then after each day you realize, I did well. Go to bed, get up, repeat, and do it again. And one day, you will get exactly what you're asking for or something greater than you could have ever expected. And that's the beauty of prayer. That's how good God is. Your prayer will be answered beyond your heart's desires. It's never true that you're disappointed as a result of your prayer, so you have every incentive to pray now. You say, I want this. Great. And God foresees everything in the future, and He knows what's best. And He will make you so happy with the results of your efforts that you will be so glad that you prayed and prayed and prayed. Not one prayer, not one visit will be wasted, because you will get what you wanted, which is happiness. What are we really looking for? We're looking to be happy with the results of our prayers, right? And so you will get what you're asking for or something far greater. Example is Saint Monica. She wanted her son's incontinence to be checked by marriage. And what she got was a brilliant theologian, doctor of the Roman Catholic Church, priest, and bishop. Far greater than she could ever have expected. And so God holds that example out to us, and we've got to follow it. Set aside the tears, and the worry when or what. If you are asking God for a miracle, be prepared to get it, or be prepared to get something far greater than the miracle you're asking for. Okay, so every Friday, what are we supposed to do? The Friday of each week is also a day on which we should pay special honor to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It was on this day that our loving Savior gave the supreme proof of his love for us by his death on the cross. It was on Friday that his Sacred Heart was opened by a lance to be our place of refuge. It is just therefore that on each Friday we should show the Sacred Heart some new marks of our love. Jesus Christ has made known to us how pleasing it would be to him that the whole of the day be specially consecrated to honoring his Sacred Heart. Therefore, on each Friday morning, we should offer the day to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and consecrate to its honor all the good works of the day, forming the intention to do as many good works as possible and to do them well. Okay. Consecrate the day to the Sacred Heart. We should offer the day to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and consecrate to its honor all the good works of the day. Forming the intention to do as many good works. See, there you go. And do them well. The motive of all the devotional practices of the day should be made to make reparation for all the contempt and outrages. How many times have we heard this, right? Motive. Should be what? Reparation. For all the contempt and outrages which Christ has suffered in the Blessed Sacrament. Let's do this. We're being invited to do this. See, you didn't know this, right? You thought First Friday was just a day to make reparation to the Sacred Heart. It's much more. And to give him to this adorable sacrament some marks of our love and gratitude. And to give to the Eucharist love and gratitude. Period. Okay. Priests should offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass for this end. Those who are not priests should, if possible, receive Holy Communion for this intention also. So you're making it a mini Sacred Heart feast day. Receive communion for this intention. It's getting pretty easy. Everything you do should be in reparation for the ingratitude to the Sacred Heart and the indignities he has suffered. They should at least assist at Mass with greater respect and devotion. With greater attention, devotion. This is beautiful. Than usual. With the intention of making reparation as far as they can by their love and homage for the outrages and indignities to which his love exposes Jesus Christ in this adorable mystery. With reparation to Jesus for indignities perpetrated against him. The Eucharist. They should unite with the priest in offering up the divine sacrifice for this end, or for the Mass for this end. Beautiful. It's beautiful. And if they do not receive Holy Communion, they should at least make a spiritual communion. Those who are prevented by their duties from assisting at Mass should perform some other exercise of devotion to the Sacred Heart instead. If you can't do Mass, do another devotion. Okay, beautiful. But the following 3 exercises can and ought to be performed by all who are devoted to the Sacred Heart. The first exercise consists in conceiving great regret during this day on which Jesus Christ was crucified for us, at seeing him so forgotten. Each Friday, one. Conceive great regret during this day conceive great regret during Friday for his being so little loved and outraged. In the Eucharist. The second thing we should do in visiting the Blessed Sacrament on Fridays more frequently and with greater respect. With greater devotion. Than usual. From this motive of making reparation by our love, for the ingratitude of men to Jesus Christ in the Blessed Sacrament, in reparation again. For the disrespect against the Eucharist. Okay. But if their occupations or distance from the church prevents someone from making these frequent visits, they should, at least in their own homes or at least their occupations, adore our Lord in spirit. If away, adore in spirit. And by interior acts make up for the want of external marks of devotion. All should from time to time enter in spirit into the adorable heart of Jesus Christ and consider the loving sentiments which our Savior entertains toward us, and his ardent desire to fill us with his graces and inflame us with his love. Through the day, enter in spirit into his heart and consider the immense love he has for us. Okay. These considerations, which can be made at any time and in any place, cannot fail to inspire us with tender sentiments of love in harmony with the object of this devotion. All that is required is to enter into oneself from time to time, observe a little silence, be less distracted, and a little more recollected. This practice is easy and suitable to everybody. It is extremely useful and has procured innumerable graces and favors. Listen, he's distinguishing graces and favors. You want a favor? Keep doing this. Beg, 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 beg. Innumerable graces and favors, even such as can be visibly perceived, for all those who make use of it often. Do you see what he's telling you here? This practice is easy and suitable to everybody. It is extremely useful and has procured innumerable graces and favors, even such as can be visibly perceived, for all those who make use of it often. What is he talking about? Visible. Can you see a grace? No. You can see a favor, though. Right? Okay, so enter in spirit. Adore in spirit. So, adore in spirit by recollection. The Sacred Heart. This will produce. Look at, he's promising us something, right? Great graces and favors. And I'm going to put even visible. And I'm going to put the page number on this, page 184. I've resolved to go up to the church early in the morning every day and say my rosary in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Because I realize that if I want something extraordinary, I really have to at least attempt to do something extraordinary. And that's what I'm going to do. There is a great favor that I want from the Sacred Heart. And if this is what he wants from me, I'm going to do it. And by this, he can make me into the soul that he wants, and he can grant to me the favor that I want. Well, I shed enough tears. Trust me when I tell you. Don't get me started. Believe me. I There's plenty of. Sometimes you just gotta hold back. So, but I am determined to do what the Sacred Heart wants, because he has made some extraordinary promises to us. And I can see the setup where God sets you up, where you might say, what situation am I in here? What is this? And it's really, if you think about it, it's a situation from which you must pray yourself out. Whatever it is, there's nothing that God cannot undo. Nothing. And what is he going to do for those who come to him day in, day out, morning, noon, and night? Do it again every single day, giving up their sins, changing their bad habits. What is he going to do after all of that? Say, good job, get out of here now. It's just not the way God works. And so, this practice is easy and suitable to everybody. What is it? These considerations, which can be made at any time and in any place, cannot fail to inspire us with tender sentiments of love in harmony with the object of this devotion. All that is required is to enter into oneself from time to time, observe a little silence, be less distracted, and a little more recollected. This practice is easy and suitable to everybody. It is extremely useful and has procured innumerable graces and favors, even such as can be visibly perceived, visibly seen, for all those who make use of it often. The third exercise, okay, we're going to do 3 here. The third thing, this is each Friday now. So we have first, conceive a great regret during Friday for his being so little loved and outraged in the Eucharist. You can speak to the Sacred Heart in the morning about that. And then secondly, you visit the Eucharist with greater devotion in reparation for the disrespect against the Eucharist. If you're away, adore in spirit. Practice more silence, be more recollected, and enter into yourself and consider this immense love he has for me and you. Adore in spirit by recollection. This produces great graces and favors, even visible ones. Alright, and the third thing is, it consists in performing some good act or some little mortification. Do some good act or some mortification. Do some good act or some mortification, either exterior or interior, from the same motive and for the same end. What is the motive? In reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus against the indignities and outrages committed against him in the Blessed Sacrament, and how little loved he is. Right? So we have to be able to say that without reading it. That should be on our tongue. I need to make reparation to the Sacred Heart for the little love he receives from the greatest number of men. Okay. On Fridays, the Litany of the Sacred Heart, as well as the beads, of the Sacred Heart, and the office of the Sacred Heart, I told you what to do. Go on Divinum Officium and print out the Sacred Heart devotion, the office for that day. Should be recited if possible. Some passages of this or other books on the Sacred Heart should be read on Fridays, and all should endeavor to find a half hour or a quarter of an hour to make the meditation indicated for the particular Friday. Okay, there's a lot of things here. 3, 4, 5. Okay, we gotta... read some passages of this book. Or another Sacred Heart. Should be read on Fridays, and all should endeavor to find a half an hour. 6. To make the meditation. Indicated for the particular Friday. Okay. Now, let's finish with what we should do each day to devote ourselves to the Sacred Heart. The practice of the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus for each day. For each day. Besides these exercises of the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus for each year, each month and each week, we should have each day certain hours. Each year, each month, and each week, we should have each day certain hours set apart for thinking more particularly about Jesus Christ and honoring His Sacred Heart by giving Him some special proofs of our gratitude and love. The morning on, okay, so each day, listen to this. The morning on rising, sometime in the afternoon when Jesus Christ is less remembered, and at night before retiring to bed are the most suitable times. The morning on rising. So let me start this again. Besides these exercises of the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus for each year, each month, and each week, we should have each day certain hours set apart for thinking more particularly about Jesus Christ and honoring His Sacred Heart by giving Him some special proofs of our gratitude and love. To give gratitude and love. The morning. Sometime in the afternoon. And before bed. Are the most suitable times. In the morning on rising, after the example of many saints, we should prostrate ourselves. There you go. Not just on the feast day. On the morning on rising, or after the example of many saints, we should prostrate ourselves in the direction of the nearest church where the Blessed Sacrament is kept, and thus prostrated make an act of faith. And make an act of faith. You know what prostrate means? Get on the floor with your face to the floor and your arms spread out like the sign of the cross. Where the blessed, and thus prostrated make an act of faith. We should then adore Jesus Christ in this august sacrament, make a fervent act of love to Jesus in the tabernacle. Thank him.
Here's the deal. 48% of all U.S. households have credit card debt. That's more than 61 million with no easy way out. Until now.
Thank him for the Eucharist.
The revolutionary new app to help you get debt-free twice as fast. Sound too good to be true?
Shush. Express our sorrow at seeing him so abandoned.
Precepti salutaribus moniti, et divina institutione formati,
Oh my goodness.
audemus
He was
dicere.
actually a good singer. Sorrow for his being abandoned. And resolve to visit him as soon as possible. ASAP. Resolve to visit him as soon as possible. And love him unceasingly. The Litany of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and of the Blessed Virgin or some other prayer should be recited. Wow. Litany of the Sacred Heart and of the Blessed Virgin. We should resolve not to entertain during the day any thought or sentiment not in conformity with the sentiments of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and Mary. So listen to what you're supposed to do every day. To give gratitude and love, in the morning, prostrate yourself toward the church and do an act of faith and an act of love to Jesus in the tabernacle. Thank him for the Eucharist and express your sorrow for his being abandoned. Promise to visit him, resolve to visit him as soon as possible, and love him unceasingly. Then say the Litany of the Sacred Heart and of the Blessed Virgin Mary. All right? That's the morning. Okay. Attendance at the holy sacrifice of the Mass is assuredly the best means of honoring and loving the adorable heart of Jesus. We shall not give here any particular practices for this precious time at Mass. Love for Jesus crucified, which should take complete possession of our hearts during all this time, will not fail to suggest to you the practices which will best suit his needs, a person's needs. Above all, everyone should endeavor to bring home to himself that the sacrifice of the Mass is the same as that of Calvary, and should assist at it with the most profound respect and reverence, like people who believe that the sacrifice of Calvary is being renewed in front of them. The beads of the Sacred Heart might be said during Mass. This is unbelievable, isn't it? Say the beads of Mass and the act of consecration to the Sacred Heart before the priest's communion. Wow. Wow. And say the act of consecration before the priest's communion. This is unbelievable, huh? Those who do not receive communion in Mass should make a spiritual communion with great love and with a great desire to receive sacramentally. The rest of the time of the Mass should be employed in thanking Jesus for having loved us such an extreme as to institute this adorable mystery, and asking pardon. Whoa. This is important. The rest of the Mass. Wow, this is unbelievable. The rest of the Mass should be employed in thanking Jesus Christ. This is unbelievable. It's beautiful. Thanking Jesus Christ for having loved so much as to give us. Do you realize that the Sacred Heart focuses on the Eucharist? Jesus wanted the Sacred Heart feast day to be within the octave of the Feast of Corpus Christi. For this reason, he's abandoned. Should be employed in thanking Jesus Christ. And if you out there are in a church that honors Francis as the Pope, I could not honestly think of a better way for you to desire to honor Jesus Christ by telling our Lord, I will go, I will give up everything to go to a church that does not mix the name of a man that I believe personally to be a heretic in the name of your Mass. I will go there if you give me the grace and the favor to do it. I can't think of a better way to honor the Sacred Heart than by telling him, I love you so much, I will go to a Mass that does not include the name of Francis. If that is your wish, please make this happen for me. If you really mean that, can you think of a better way to honor the Blessed Sacrament like St. Hermenegild did when he rejected the Blessed Sacrament at his death? St. Hermenegild rejected the body and blood, the soul and divinity of Jesus Christ, knowing that if he did, they were going to kill him. He knew they had the real Blessed Sacrament on them when they came to visit him in his prison. And the bishop, the Arian bishop, attempted to give him communion. And St. Hermenegild said, I love the Blessed Sacrament so much, I love God so much, that I will not receive that Blessed Sacrament that you have on you. And I believe it to be the Blessed Sacrament. And because it was confected in the rot of heresy, and that it was performed during a Catholic rite mixed with heresy, I will not receive it. What was his reward? He was rewarded with immediate entrance into heaven by Jesus Christ for having rejected Jesus Christ at his death. Because Jesus Christ was offered to him by the hands of a heretic who was telling St. Hermenegild that by receiving this, you tacitly agree to the heresies that we teach and that you implicitly accept by receiving this Blessed Sacrament for fear of being killed. Now open your mouth and receive this communion. And he said, no, I will rather go to my death than receive the Blessed Sacrament that was confected by a heretic. Because by receiving the true body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ at your hands, I implicitly accept the heresy that you profess from the altar, from the pulpit, in the church in which this blessed sacrament was confected, and therefore I would rather die than receive it. I beg you, for those of you who are begging for a favor, an extraordinary favor, a miracle, whatever you're asking for, that if you ask God, please make it happen for me to get to a Mass so that I could honor you in truth, so that I don't have to honor you in a tabernacle that looks beautiful, that's in 100-year-old church, because the people who run this institution profess heresy in the confessionals, telling women to go on birth control and telling people heresies from the pulpits. I would rather be in a church that doesn't profess heresy, Lord. Please, I'll do anything. Grant me this favor. Do you think God would reject that? I don't. During Mass, the rest of the time at Mass, I hate when I lose my place. Okay, I found it. The rest of the time a Mass should be employed in thanking Jesus Christ for having loved us so much to give us this blessed sacrament. For giving us the Eucharist. Asking pardon. Boy, this is unbelievably beautiful, my goodness. So beautiful. There was once a time I lived for myself. Completely for myself. And then you know what? God allowed me to fall into a really bad situation. Because he knew it was the only thing that would wake me up. And then at 32, he's just pulled everything out from underneath me. And I realized that the very things into which I put all of my hopes for happiness crumbled right under me. And I had nothing left. I felt like I was walking through the ravages of an earthquake. And everything that I loved was underfoot, pulverized. And there was nothing else there. Everything that I had hoped to gain happiness crumbled. And I came to the realization that there has to be something else in life from which to draw an unimpeachable happiness. And I realized the answer was the friendship of God. And then having done that, that caused all other sorts of problems. But these were problems that were easily surmountable by prayer and knowing that I was doing the right thing. Come to Brooksville. All of you. Come to Brooksville. I did. I left everything. I went to Brooksville. Should we give God any less? Can you imagine asking God, put me in a place where you're loved? And he says, no. No. You're going to stay there. Ask pardon during the Mass for the ingratitude of men. Asking pardon for the ingratitude of men who treat the Mass with coldness. Talking about Catholics. Who treat the Mass with coldness or with contempt and irreverence. I never saw that. Irreverence. And finally, spend the Mass in making up for this indifference. And of reverence by profound adoration and ardent love. I mean, this is tremendous, this stuff. It's tremendous information. It's a lot of info. I don't like the way the book was written. So we'll resume with 2 pages left on the next one. It's 2.5 pages left. Telling you what to do. The next chapter is chapter 4. The motives which should urge us to visit the Blessed Sacrament. I can't wait to make my notes. Oh, the book is almost over. The end of the book is the meditations. Oh, I see. I thought I had... Oh, man, I'm almost done. Listen, I care about all of you who watch these videos. And I was just in front of the Blessed Sacrament praying for all of you. Yeah, I'm almost done. Check it out. That's all I got left with this book right here. This is what we've read so far. This over here. And then this little part is all I have left. The rest is meditations. Awesome, man. I'm almost done. I can't wait to write my outline so that all of you can benefit from it. I'll make it very consolidated and you won't miss any point that has been gone over in this book. You won't miss a point. Not a one. I want to leave you with something because we're after something extraordinary here. We are in a great time. Here's why. Heaven is there for the taking. The Sacred Heart is there for the giving. If we give ourselves to Him, what will He give us? God cannot be outdone in charity. He can't. He may make believe He's not listening to you. He may treat you like a dog, like He did to the Canaanite woman. But we know, because God has revealed His history to us, what He's really like. There's something God cannot do. and that is this: He cannot take ardent, importunate, persevering, confident prayer without giving you the desire of your heart. He cannot do it. He's incapable of doing it. The Sacred Heart appeared to Saint Gertrude the Great and said to her, "When anyone has complete confidence in me and believes that I have the power, the wisdom, and the desire to aid him on all occasions, this ravishes my heart and does me such violence that I cannot help favoring such a soul on account of the pleasure I experience in seeing it so dependent upon me, and to satisfy the great love I bear to it." Yes, God is incapable of something, and He's incapable of listening to you cry to Him day in and day out without rewarding such confident, loving, humble, persevering prayer. Go to Luke 18, starting at verse 2, and you will see what confident, persevering, importunate prayer gets for the person offering the prayers. In St. Luke 18:1, he says, "Pray without ceasing, lest you faint." And then he says, "Hear the parable of the unjust judge." And it's about a woman who keeps praying. And the unjust judge pretty much says, "I better give her this to shut her up." And God pretty much says to you, you see what the unjust judge, if he can do that being unjust, he says, will God not avenge his elect who cry to him day and night? Surely he will. Let me read the story to you and leave you with that, so that you can be very confident that the Sacred Heart favors you and has inspired your prayers. And he spoke also a parable to them, that we ought always to pray and not to faint, saying, there was a judge in a certain city, who feared not God, nor regarded man. And there was a certain widow in that city, and she came to him, saying, avenge me of my adversary. And he would not for a long time. But afterwards he said within himself, although I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow is troublesome to me, I will avenge her, lest continually coming she weary me. And the Lord said, hear what the unjust judge said. And will not God revenge his elect, who cry to him day and night? And will he have patience in their regard? I say to you, that he will quickly revenge them. But yet the Son of Man, when he cometh, shall he find, think you, faith on earth? Why does he put that issue of faith in right after this parable? Because faith and confidence is what gives prayer its efficacy. So says St. Thomas Aquinas. Prayer gets its merit from charity, but prayer gets its efficacy from faith and confidence. Ask God for what you want. Don't question what you want. Continue to beg and let God hear your prayers and count your tears and your Hail Marys and your visits and your acts of goodness, all consecrated to Him. And you will one day look back and say, the Sacred Heart answered my prayers. we're weak and we start to doubt and we think, don't do that, that's not from God. That's one of the three things other than God, which is the world, the flesh, and the devil. Discouragement does not come from God. Be courageous and be bold in your prayers and believe.